Hey everyone, these 15 beaches just look completely wrong, with sand the color of lava and shorelines that just disappear. Join me, we're going to take a look at 15 beaches that are the wrong color. Starting with number 15, Punalu Beach, Hawaii, black sand. So, Punalu Beach on the Big Island of Hawaii is one of the most well-known black sand beaches in the world. This one owes the dark appearance to basalt, that's a volcanic rock that forms when lava rapidly cools upon meeting ocean water. In the case of Punalu, frequent lava flows from the nearby Kilauea volcano have shaped the coastline for centuries, with eruptions sending molten rock down into the ocean where it fractures and solidifies into small black particles. Over time, these fragments accumulate to form a beach that looks strikingly different from the usual golden sand. Now, this beach is located on the southeastern coast of Hawaii's Big Island, and it's accessible by car. The beach is relatively narrow, with large coconut palms and rough waters that makes it more suitable for observing than swimming. The currents here can be pretty strong, and the bottom is often too rocky, making water activities a bit limited. Despite that, though, it does remain a popular stop due to the unusual scenery and the possibility of encountering endangered Hawaiian green sea turtles, which are often seen basking on the black sand. The color of the sand also means it gets hot quickly under the sun, so visitors usually have to wear foot protection while walking on it. And unlike many other Hawaiian beaches with coral-based white sand, Punalu'u's origin is entirely volcanic. That constant presence of Kilauea has made the region a dynamic environment, and places like this one visitors can see firsthand the interaction of volcanic activity and natural beach formation. The local communities here and conservationists have taken measures to preserve both the sand and the turtles. Removing sand is prohibited, and sign warns visitors about disturbing the wildlife. In addition to the turtles, monk seals occasionally lay out on the beach, though that's less common. Visitors are urged to keep a respectful distance from these protected species. Punalu'u is more than just a geological oddity. For the native Hawaiians, the beach and its surrounding land is cultural and historically significant. Ancient fish ponds and sacred temples once stood in the vicinity, and the area is rich in traditional lore. Still though, the most visible feature here remains the stark black appearance, a product of Hawaii's volcanic underpinnings, and it's one of the clearest examples of how geological process directly shapes our coastlines. Number 14, the Glass Beach in California. Glass Beach, which is located in Fort Bragg, California, is really unlike any other beach on this list. Instead of being naturally formed by erosion of rocks or coral, its unique sand was created by decades of human dumping. Beginning in the early 20th century, residents of Fort Bragg used this site as an informal garbage dump. Household waste, including glass, ceramics, and metal, was discarded into the ocean from the cliffs above. Over the years, the dumping ground became filled with broken glass and other refuse. Eventually, the dumping was stopped and cleanup efforts began in the 1960s. While much of the large debris was removed, the broken glass fragments remained. The ocean, through years of wave action and abrasion, gradually wore down the sharp edges and just polished the pieces into smooth, rounded glass pebbles. Now, these make up a significant portion of the beach surface. The result is a beach where the sand is interspersed with sparkling pieces of red, green, blue, brown, and clear glass. Depending on the light and moisture levels, the glass can appear dull or really vibrant, and on sunny days the surface glitters with color, giving the beach an unusual visual texture. Glass Beach is now part of a state park and it's protected by state regulations. Collecting glass is officially prohibited, though this rule has not always been enforced strictly. Over the years, souvenir hunters and natural attrition have reduced the volume of sea glass present. Nevertheless, significant quantities do remain, especially during lower tides or after storms. Native plants, too, have returned to the area, and wildlife, including shorebirds and tide pool organisms that now thrive in the area. Interpretive signs placed around the beach explain its history and encourage responsible tourism. And while the origins of Glass Beach are rooted in environmental neglect, the site serves as an example now of how natural recovery and long-term impacts of human activity have on coastal landscapes. Not all sections of the beach have equal concentrations of glass either. The most visited area is the southern cove, and that's been scoured cleanest by the waves. Other, less accessible areas farther north still contain larger and more colorful pieces. Glass Beach's story has also inspired various recycling and upcycling initiatives. Some local artisans use collected sea glass, when legally sourced, to make jewelry and crafts. There's also educational programs in Fort Bragg that use the beach as a teaching example of environmental stewardship. In the end, Glass Beach stands out not just because of its unusual coloration, but because it challenges the usual narrative of natural beauty. It's a place where destruction and recovery intersect, creating a multicolored shoreline that doesn't really resemble any traditional beach, but it continues to draw thousands of people each year. Number 13. Papakolea Beach, Hawaii. Green sand. So, Papakolea Beach, located on the southern tip of Hawaii's Big Island, is one of only 4 known green sand beaches in the world. It has a distinct olive green color caused by a mineral called olivine, which is present in large quantities in the nearby volcanic cone. Olivine is one of the first crystals to form as magma cools, and it is relatively heavy and resistant to weathering, allowing it to accumulate on the shore as other lighter materials are washed away. The source of the green sand is a cinder cone, a 49,000-year-old volcanic formation that's part of the larger Mauna Loa system. As the cone erodes, particles of olivine are released and carried to the beach by wind and gravity. Those particles then settle and accumulate on the shoreline. Now, while individual grains of olivine may not appear bright green, the high concentration of them in the sand gives the entire beach a greenish tint that becomes more pronounced in sunlight. Now, the area is extremely remote and not accessible by any direct road. To reach it, you have to either hike about 2.5 miles each way from the nearest parking area or pay for a local shuttle ride. The path to the beach crosses some pretty rugged terrain, largely dry grassland with little shade, and ends with a steep descent into the bay itself. There's no facilities here or amenities at the beach, and conditions can be harsh, especially under the intense sun and wind. The beach sits within a bay that's partially enclosed by the eroding walls of the cinder cone. Now, the cliffs surrounding the beach help trap the olivine particles and prevent them from being just carried out to sea. The waves here can be pretty rough. There's no lifeguards, so swimming is discouraged. Instead, most people visit for the uniqueness and visual novelty rather than for the water activities. Visitors here are strictly prohibited from taking sand or rock. Even small disturbances can reduce the long-term viability of its coloration. Park officials have placed signs at the entrances warning against sand collection and outlining the importance of preserving the site. The presence of olivine on Hawaiian beaches is not uncommon, but nowhere else in the Hawaiian Islands does it happen on such a concentrated and visible form. Elsewhere, olivine usually mixes with black basalt and other volcanic minerals, giving beaches darker or a speckled appearance. At Papakolea, however, the dominance of olivine and the relative scarcity of the other materials results in a beach that appears unmistakably green. Though not as well known as Hawaii's black or white sand beaches, Papakolea has a unique place in geological tourism. Its isolated location, difficult access, and rarity make it a destination for more adventurous travelers and those interested in the earth sciences. Along with the red and black beaches on the Big Island, it does help demonstrate the variety of volcanic process in shaping Hawaii's coastal environments. Number 12. Pink Sand Beach, Bahamas. The Pink Sands Beach, located on Harbor Island in the Bahamas, is one of the most photographed pink sand beaches in the world. The sand gets that unique color from the presence of microscopic foraminifera, a type of marine organism that has a reddish-pink shell. When these creatures die, their shells mix with white coral and shell fragments on the beach, resulting in a soft pastel pink color that can vary slightly depending on the lighting. This pink sand stretches for about 3 miles along the eastern shore of the island. Unlike more rugged beaches though, Pink Sands Beach is relatively flat and wide, with fine sand that feels powdery underfoot. The ocean here is usually calm due to the barrier reef just offshore, which kind of acts like a buffer against large waves, and it makes the beach ideal for swimming and snorkeling. Unlike some colored beaches that exist in remote, unstable locations, Pink Sands is adjacent to resorts and vacation homes. Harbor Island itself is accessible by ferry or short flight from Nassau, and the beach has been ranked repeatedly in travel publications as one of the world's most beautiful due to that rare color. Now, those foraminifera thrive in the coral environments here, and their abundance near Harbor Island is a key factor in sustaining the coloration. Other pink beaches around the world often share that trait, but few match the clarity and intensity of the pink. This sand isn't uniformly pink though, it does appear more like a mix of white and pink grains that collectively look rose-colored from a distance. Damage to reefs in the area could directly impact the availability of the pink-shelled organisms, making the beach's color potentially vulnerable over the long term. However, the reef system in Harbor Island does remain relatively healthy due to protective zoning. Visitors, of course, are discouraged from removing the sand or shells, and regulations are in place to protect the natural ecosystem. Efforts have been made to maintain its natural appeal while supporting local communities economically. Pink Sands Beach. It's one of only a few beaches worldwide with that distinctive coloration, and its well-preserved setting makes it a leading example of how rare natural features can coexist with sustainable tourism when managed carefully. Number 11. Ramla Bay, Malta, Red Sand. Ramla Bay is located on the north coast of Gozo, Malta's second-largest island. It's home to one of the most distinctively colored beaches in the Mediterranean. Its name, Ramla El Hamra, literally translates to Red Sand Beach in Maltese, and that's no exaggeration. The sand here has a pronounced reddish-orange tint that sets it apart from the more common or white or golden sand beaches elsewhere in Malta. The red coloration of this sand is primarily due to the high iron oxide content found in the surrounding rock and soil, and over centuries, weathering and erosion have carried those particles down to the shoreline. The result is a deep, warm-toned sand that stands out against the turquoise waters in the Med, especially when viewed from above. The beach sits at the end of a fertile valley known as Ramla Valley, which funnels these sediments down from the surrounding hillsides to the coast. Now, the hills are composed of a reddish clay material and rich terra rossa soils, which are really common in southern Europe and known for their rich iron content. This constant supply of sediment helps maintain this reddish tint of the beach, even as natural erosion and human activity threaten to dilute or displace it. And in addition to the unusual color, the bay is relatively untouched compared to many other European beaches. There's no large-scale resorts or other major developments here encroaching on the shoreline. Instead, a few small snack bars and facilities sit discreetly near the entrance, while most of the beach remains open and natural. At the eastern end of the beach is a large statue of the Virgin Mary, placed there in 1881 to commemorate a shipwreck survival attributed to divine intervention. Farther up the hillside above the beach, visitors can find Calypso's Cave, reputed in local lore to be the same cave referred to in Homer's Odyssey, where the nymph Calypso held Odysseus captive. Although the connection to Homer is pretty speculative, the cave and its view over the bay offer an excellent vantage point to appreciate the beach's vibrant colors. The Maltese government and conservation groups have taken active measures to protect the bay. In the early 2000s, there was a controversial proposal to build a hotel near the beach, but this plan was eventually rejected following public opposition and environmental reviews. But because of its limited development and preservation efforts, the beach will remain in excellent natural condition. The surrounding valley is rich in plants, including tamarisk trees and reeds, and the area also supports various migratory bird species and native reptiles. Ramla Bay. It may not be as famous as some beaches in Greece or Italy, but the striking red color, the mythological associations, and the protected status make it one of the most unique coastal destinations in Europe. Number 10. Feifer Beach in California, Purple Sand. So, Feifer Beach, it's located in Big Sur on the central coast of California. It's known for its rare purple sand, a color that's both unexpected and scientifically explainable. This stretch of coastline lies within the Los Padres National Forest, and it's somewhat hidden from view, accessible only via a narrow winding road off Highway 1. The remote nature of this beach does add to its mystery, but it's the purple sand that really sets it apart. That coloration is due to a manganese garnet, a mineral that erodes from the nearby cliffs composed of metamorphic rock. As the rain or wave action breaks down the garnet-rich rock, small particles of the mineral are carried down to the beach. When the lights hit those garnets just right at the right angle, they appear distinctly violet, lavender, or plum-colored, depending on the concentration and the moisture. But what makes it even more interesting is the contrast between the purple patches and the surrounding tan sand. The distribution of garnet is irregular, and strong tides can quickly bury or expose different patches, meaning the beach looks different almost every time you visit it. In some places, visitors can see wave-like streaks of purple that weave through the more neutral sand, giving the beach an almost abstract, painted look. Though the garnet is present in other places along the coast, Feifer Beach is one of the few accessible places where this erosion pattern happens and topography creates a consistent deposit of the mineral onto the beach. The beach is, though, also known for the Keyhole Arch. That's a natural rock formation with a hole in the base. Around the winter solstice, the setting sun will align with the arch and shine directly through it, and it of course attracts photographers hoping to capture that phenomenon. While the rock arch draws crowds in winter, the purple sand is more visible and vibrant in spring and summer, particularly after heavy rains. Due to the fragile nature of the purple sand deposits, though, visitors are asked not to take sand or disturb the mineral layers. Though some people have tried to bottle or collect the purple sand, it is illegal and contributes to long-term degradation. Over time, increased foot traffic too and erosion have already led to some changes in the distribution of these garnet-rich zones. Feifer Beach. It doesn't offer the warm water or wide beaches of more popular destinations, but its unusual mineral composition and remote setting make it one of the most interesting beaches in the U.S. Number 9. Haims Beach, Australia. Bright white sand. Haims Beach, located in Jervis Bay on the southeastern coast of Australia, is known for having some of the brightest white sand in the world. The sand here is so white and fine that it often reflects the light with an almost blinding intensity under the sun. Though various beaches claim to have the whitest sand, globally, Haims Beach is frequently mentioned in travel guides, and it even held a place in the Guinness World Records at one point, though the claim is often debated and not officially maintained. The sand here is composed almost entirely of quartz, which has been weathered down over time into very fine grains. This high-purity quartz sand lacks the mineral impurities that typically tint sand yellow or brown, or even red. The fine uniform texture also helps the light scatter evenly across the surface. Jervis Bay itself is naturally protected with calm, clear water and a relatively underdeveloped coastline. That lack of industrial activity and minimal ermid runoff help preserve the clarity of the water here and the cleanliness of the sand. This has allowed Haims Beach to maintain its visual appeal. Access to the beach is easy by a small village of the same name. Haims Beach Village is a quiet residential area with a few cafes and vacation rentals. The beach is only a few hundred meters long, but its appearance and setting have made it one of the most photographed spots in New South Wales. The slope of the shoreline and the wave activity just make it great for swimming, snorkeling, and casual walking. Despite its growing popularity, the beach has also experienced some challenges that come with tourism. Overcrowding during the summer has led to some environmental degradation and prompted local authorities to implement some preservation measures. Local conservation groups, too, have also worked to educate tourists about this ecosystem. The dunes behind the beach are home to some native vegetation, and they serve as a buffer against coastal erosion. Visitors here are encouraged to stay on designated paths and avoid trampling dune plants. Now, unlike commercial beaches with extensive development, Haims remains mostly residential. Though other beaches in Australia, like those in Western Australia's Lucky Bay, also claim to have extremely white sand, Haims Beach combination of quartz purity, fine grain size, and scenic backdrop make it stand out. It may not be the absolute whitest by measurable standards, but it remains one of the most visually impressive beaches in the world. Number 8. Kihalulu Beach, red sand. Kihalulu Beach, often called the Red Sand Beach. It's located on the eastern coast of Maui near the town of Anak. Now, what makes this one unique is the vivid reddish sand, which contrasts sharply with the surrounding blue water and green vegetation. Unlike more accessible beaches in Hawaii, this one's hidden behind private property and it requires a short but hazardous hike along a narrow cliff. And despite the difficulty, it continues to attract people, specifically because of its rare red coloration. That deep hue comes from the erosion of nearby Cinder Cone, a volcanic hill made of a loosely packed volcanic ash and rock. Now, the cinder cone is rich in iron. As the elements erode its surface, the iron oxide, essentially rust, is released and deposited onto the beach, turning the sand a rust-red color. That reddish color can range from dark maroon to brick red, depending on how recently the material from the cliff has been deposited. The beach, though, sits in a partially collapsed volcanic crater, which creates a natural amphitheater that shields the cove from any strong waves. A rock wall formed by lava outflow also helps protect the bay from larger surf. That protective structure creates a relatively peaceful swimming environment, although the currents are strong and rocky bottom can still be pretty dangerous. The narrow trail that leads to the beach isn't maintained and can be treacherous, especially after the rain. Loose gravel, sheer drops, and lack of handrails means that visitors have to proceed with extreme caution. Despite safety concerns, though, that vivid color and secluded location have made it one of Maui's hidden gems. Due to the small size and isolation, there's no facilities here, no bathrooms, lifeguards, or snack stands, and the beach is not suitable for large groups or long stays. The appearance of the red sand against the water has just made it a favorite for drone photography and landscape shots, though flying drones in this area may be restricted by local rules. But the red sand here is gradually diminishing as the cinder cone continues to erode. While this replenishes the beach with fresh material, wave action also carries it away, and there's a concern that over time, the sand will be replaced by more common black or brown sand. Because of this and the environmental pressure from tourism, efforts have been made to discourage promotion of the beach to minimize exposure on social media. Kihalulu is one of only a few true red sand beaches in the world, and its formation is tied directly to Maui's volcanic history. It's a clear example of how Hawaii's active geology continues to shape the land in unusual and dramatic ways, even in hidden corners that few tourists ever see. Moving on to number 7, Reisfjara Beach, Iceland, black sand. Reisfjara Beach, located near the town of Vík on the southern coast of Iceland, is one of the most famous black sand beaches in the world. Its jet black appearance comes from volcanic activity, of course, specifically the rapid cooling and fragmentation of basalt lava, which has been eroded over the centuries by the North Atlantic. The sand here is coarse and almost gravel-like, made up of basalt pebbles and tiny volcanic fragments, creating a contrast with the white foam of the waves and the gray skies that often loom above. The beach is framed by geological features that contribute to this landscape. The most prominent are the sea stacks. These are towering basalt rock columns that rise up from the ocean just offshore. According to Icelandic folklore, these formations were once trolls attempting to drag a ship to shore, turned to stone by the rising sun. Although mythological, the presence of these sea stacks is a real geological outcome of erosion, where tougher basalt resists the weathering while the surrounding cliff retreats. Behind the beach, the cliffs are lined with hexagonal basalt columns that's formed from lava that cooled slowly and contracted into these geometric shapes. These formations, known as columnar jointing, are also seen at sites like the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. The cliff and stacks, combined with the black sand and frequent heavy surf, give Reisfjara an appearance that feels like another world. It's become one of Iceland's most visited tourist sites, in part due to its accessibility from the main ring road and its frequent appearance in the media. The beach has been featured in movies, television series like Game of Thrones, and music videos, and that contributes to its recognition. This increase in tourism has brought attention to the need for better infrastructure and more active safety enforcement. The black sand itself, though, is slowly shaped and replenished by the volcanic environment. Iceland, situated on the mid-Atlantic ridge, does experience frequent volcanic activity, and much of the southern coastline consists of basalt and other volcanic rock. As these formations break down and debris washes down rivers and into the ocean, where it's further ground into sand and redeposited on beaches like Reisfjara. Environmental protection efforts have focused on educating visitors about the dangers and significance of the site. While the black sand is not easily removed as finer white-colored sand, collecting rocks is discouraged, and the beach is monitored to ensure safety and stability. The surrounding areas are also home to some seabird colonies, including puffins, which can be seen nesting during certain times of the year. So Reisfjara is a visually intense and geologically rich location, showing how Iceland's volcanic and coastal forces just collide to produce some of the world's most unusual shorelines. Number 6. Horseshoe Bay, Bermuda, pink sand. Horseshoe Bay, it's located on the southern coast of Bermuda, is one of the island's most famous beaches. The coloration here is soft and pastel pink, blending white grains with pink in a way that makes the beach glow under the sunlight. Horseshoe Bay is crescent-shaped, hence the name, and it's surrounded by cliffs and turquoise waters that create a scenic destination. The pink hue of the sand comes from microscopic organisms called foraminifera. We talked about those earlier. These single-celled marine creatures have reddish-pink shells made of calcium carbonate, and when they die, their shells are crushed and mixed with the beach's white limestone sand, creating that light pink coloration. Now, while the color of the sand is visible year-round, it is most noticeable when the sand is wet or viewed in bright sun. From a distance, the beach does appear white with a rosy tint. Up close, visitors can see individual pink grains mixed among the lighter particles. The consistency here of the sand is fine and soft, which adds to its appeal. The beach can get crowded during cruise ship season, especially when multiple ships dock in Hamilton or Dockyard. Still though, the bay is long enough that quieter sections can usually be found away from the main entrance. At the end of the bay, a natural rock arch allows waves to pass through in dramatic fashion. Tide pools and coral outcrops create habitats for small fish and marine invertebrates. Bermuda has several pink sand beaches, but Horseshoe Bay is the most iconic, and it's frequently cited due to its accessibility and its facilities. Others like Elbow Beach and Warwick Long Bay also feature pink sand, though with less infrastructure and fewer crowds. Like other coral reef-dependent beaches, the health of the Horseshoe Bay sand is tied directly to the ecosystem of the reef. Rising sea temperatures, ocean acidification, and pollution do pose long-term risks to the coral and, by extension, the foraminifera that give the beach its pink hue. It's become synonymous with Bermuda's image in international tourism. Postcards, travel brochures, and tourism campaigns often feature this beach prominently, and it's earned accolades from travel publications as one of the world's top beach destinations. The pink sand isn't artificial or imported. It's the result of a delicate balance, one that continues to draw thousands of visitors every year. Number 5. Playa de Sesiletes, white and pink sand in Spain. Playa de Sesiletes is located on the northern tip of Formentera in Spain's Balearic Islands. It's known for its bright white sand that often takes on a pale pink hue in certain light. Though not as vividly pink as some other beaches in the world, this combination of white sand and a fine dusting of red coral fragments give parts of the shore a subtle pink that's visible under the right conditions. Now, the primary component of that color is crushed coral and seashells mixed with very fine, clean limestone sand. Those materials have been deposited by centuries of tidal movement and wave action. The clarity of the surrounding water is aided by the absence of any major development or river runoff, and that enhances the reflection of sunlight off the pale surface, giving it a nearly glowing appearance. Sesiletes is part of the Ses Salines Natural Park, a protected area where development is tightly controlled and environmental regulations have helped preserve the purity of the sand and the health of nearby seagrass meadows. The beach sits within a fragile system, and the surrounding ocean seagrass fields, some of the oldest living organisms on Earth, play a major role in maintaining the water clarity here. The pinkish tint in the sand comes from those crushed red algae, much like the pink sand beaches around the world. While it's not uniform across the entire beach, patches of the pink hue are especially visible near the tide line or when the sand is wet. Access to this area is relatively easy. Visitors can arrive by bike, scooter, or even by foot from nearby accommodations, as Formentera is a small island with limited motor traffic. During peak summer months, however, the beach can become crowded and restrictions are placed on vehicle access to prevent any damage. Tour boats also dock near the southern edge of the beach, bringing day trippers to enjoy the shallow waters and the calm atmosphere. Despite increased tourism, though, the beach does retain much of its natural character. There's very few beachside restaurants and services, though, and they operate within strict environmental guidelines. Snorkeling is a popular activity here due to the calm, shallow waters and the presence of small fish and marine life. The seabed features patches of coral, seagrass, and sandy plains, creating a diverse, colorful underwater landscape. While not intensely colored, the subtle mix of white and pinkish sand combined with clear water and minimal waves creates a visual effect that's often described as unreal or Caribbean-like, despite being located in the Mediterranean. The preservation here relies heavily on sustainable tourism and the continued enforcement of any protections. If these are maintained, Sesiletes will likely remain one of the most unique beaches in Europe, a place where geology, biology, and careful management come together to produce sand that's not quite white, not quite pink, but distinct and memorably different. Number 4. Tangi Beach in Indonesia, pink sand. Tangi Beach, another pink sand beach located on the southeastern tip of Lombok in Indonesia, is one of the few places in Asia with visibly pink sand. This coloration is caused by a mix of crushed white coral and red calcium carbonate from tiny marine invertebrates that live in the nearby reef systems. When the red shells of these organisms wash ashore and mix in with the abundant white sand, the beach takes on a pink appearance. When dry, the sand appears light and less vivid, but still clearly pink. The exact intensity can vary from day to day. The beach is remote and largely undeveloped and accessible only by a long drive through winding roads and villages. Because of its isolation, it's remained relatively unspoiled compared to more commercialized destinations in Bali or the Gili Islands. Local fishermen still use the area, and there's only a handful of small vendors or facilities nearby. Tourism here has increased in recent years due to social media exposure, but it remains a quiet, low-traffic site for now. The water here is pretty clear and typically calm, protected by a nearby rock formation that breaks the waves before they reach the shore. That makes it an ideal spot for swimming and snorkeling. Some visitors will also explore the surrounding cliffs for better vantage points where the contrast between the blue water and the pink sand is most pronounced. The beach is part of a fragile environment. Coral bleaching, pollution, and irresponsible tourism practices could easily degrade the beach, which would eventually reduce that pink coloration. Conservationists have urged local authorities to regulate tourism. Currently, however, environmental oversight is pretty minimal and efforts rely heavily on education and voluntary compliance from visitors. The beach does stand out not just because of that color, but because of how underdeveloped it is compared to similar beaches worldwide. There's no large hotels, beach clubs, or tour packages. The lack of any infrastructure may deter some travelers, but it also means that the beach remains in a relatively natural state. For those willing to make the journey, it does offer a unique visual experience and a rare opportunity to see a pink sand beach that's not yet been heavily commercialized. It's often listed alongside other rare-colored beaches in global rankings, and while it does lack the promotional machine behind places like Harbor Island or Horseshoe Bay, its growing recognition suggests that its status may not remain obscure for long. Tangi Beach, it's a vivid reminder that rare natural phenomena don't only exist in heavily developed areas. Sometimes they're tucked away in less traveled corners of the world, preserved not through active protection, but through sheer inaccessibility. At least for now. Number 3. Kaimu Beach, lava rock shoreline on the Big Island of Hawaii. Kaimu Beach on Hawaii's Big Island is not a traditional beach at all. In fact, it didn't exist in its current form until 1990, when a lava flow from the Kilauea volcano buried the original Kaimu Bay. What exists now in its place is one of the most bizarre and geologically active beaches in the world, a wide, flat expanse of black lava rock where the Pacific meets a coastline that's still forming. Before 1990, Kaimu was a thriving beach community known for its black sand bay and palm-lined shore. That changed when the volcano's lava flow wiped out the town, the beach, and the surrounding land. In a matter of days, the ocean front was transformed into a hardened lava field, sealing off access to the original bay forever. Today, the Kaimu quote-unquote beach is a sharp and uneven surface of lava, smooth in some places, ropey and jagged in others. The waves still crash against the coast, but there's no real sand, just crumbled fragments of lava that has started to break down slowly. Visitors can walk across the lava field and see the faint remnants of former streets and property boundaries now etched into the stone. And nature has started to reclaim the area with ferns, grasses, and coconut palms slowly pushing through the cracks in the basalt. Because Kaimu is not naturally eroded like traditional beaches, it has no soft entry point into the ocean. The shore just abruptly ends at a cliff or a steep slope. Swimming here is dangerous and strongly discouraged, as the submerged lava formations make the currents and undertows a little bit unpredictable. Still though, the surreal landscape is the thing that draws visitors who want to witness a beach made not by erosion, but by destruction and rebirth. Locals have made efforts to bring back some of the beach's former character too. A replanting project began shortly after the lava cooled, with coconuts planted directly into the cracks in the rocks. Now those palms have grown over the past 30 years, and today a small grove sways where molten lava once flowed. But the area is still very much defined by its geological trauma. It's just a frozen snapshot of an eruption, layered with visible waves of once liquid rock. Kaimu Beach is a powerful reminder that the Hawaiian Islands are alive, and that beaches are not permanent. They come and go based on what the volcano decides. This beach was not shaped over millions of years, but over a matter of days, in full view of the stunned residents and visitors. It remains one of the clearest examples of a volcanic beach created not by nature's patience, but by its raw power. Number 2. Anak, Krakatoa, volcanic island shoreline in Indonesia. The beach surrounding Anak Krakatoa, the child of Krakatoa in the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra, is more like an active volcano than a destination for swimming or relaxation. It formed after the infamous eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. Anak Krakatoa rose from the caldera's center in 1927 and has continued growing ever since. Its beaches are not made out of sand, but of ash, pumice, and rough volcanic debris. Standing on the shores of Anak Krakatoa is like walking on the skin of a freshly formed planet. The quote-unquote beach here is just constantly changing. The volcano erupts and collapses in cycles, and new material is deposited along the island's rim, while the older sections are sheared off into the ocean. The coast is just a mix of unstable boulders, sulfur-stained rocks, and hot ash-covered ground. The land is black, rust-red, and gray, scarred and steaming in places depending on the volcano's recent activity. There is little vegetation near the shoreline, and the air often smells of sulfur and minerals. The beach is hot underfoot and hazardous to the constant seismic tremors. Anak Krakatoa has erupted repeatedly in the 21st century, with a violent event in 2018 that triggered a deadly tsunami. That eruption partially collapsed the island, reducing its height by more than 600 feet and changing the shape of the coastline entirely. Despite the danger, though, the volcano is studied closely by scientists and occasionally visited by researchers and highly experienced travelers using chartered boats. Getting close to the beach requires permits and careful timing due to the unpredictability of the eruptions. The landscape here is raw and active. It's constantly building and eroding itself as new magma reaches the surface. But what makes it so unusual isn't just that risk. It's one of the few places on Earth where you can actually witness land being created. Every lava flow that reaches the coast adds a little bit more landmass. Every eruption alters the island's shape. There's no fixed shoreline, only a boundary between fire and water that moves with every geological twitch. While it's not a beach in the traditional sense, no towels, no umbrellas, no shoreline bars, Anak Krakatoa's volcanic edge is one of the most dramatic, active coastal environments in the world. It shows you that beaches don't just erode or fade away. In rare and violent places like this, they explode into being. Number 1. The Chandapur Beach, the vanishing shoreline in India. Chandapur Beach, located along the Bay of Bengal in the Indian state of Odisha, is unlike any other beach in the world, not because of the color of its sand or the makeup of the geology. It's because the ocean literally disappears from view every single day. Known as the Vanishing Beach, Chandapur experiences one of the most extreme tidal effects on the planet, where the sea recedes up to 5 kilometers, more than 3 miles during low tide, and then returns hours later as if nothing happened. This daily tidal rhythm transforms the coastline twice every 24 hours. When the tide goes out, it exposes huge stretches of the seabed, muddy flats, rippled golden sand, tide-carved channels, and pools filled with stranded marine life. Crabs scuttle across the wet sand, and mollusks burrow in the silt, and small fish sometimes get caught in temporary puddles. The entire seafloor becomes a walkable plain, and visitors can just walk out where the sea was just a few hours earlier, standing in the middle of what appears to be a huge desert of wet earth under an open sky. The phenomenon itself is driven by their extremely shallow gradient and tidal dynamics here. The eastern coastline of India slopes so gently into the sea that even moderate tidal movements result in dramatic changes in waterline. There's no volcano nearby, but topography and structure of the subcontinent, formed by millennia of tectonic uplift and sediment deposition, create ideal conditions for this disappearing act. This creates a beach experience that is less about swimming and more about observation and exploration. The sand here isn't brightly colored, it's mostly a gray-gold mix, but what lies beneath that surprises people. Starfish, horseshoe crabs, hermit crabs, sea slugs, and tiny fish all inhabit the temporarily exposed seabed. Some areas become mirror-like when covered by a thin sheen of water, giving the illusion of just walking on glass. During high tide, the beach looks more like an ordinary coastal spot, with calm waves and relatively flat shoreline, but just hours earlier the ocean had vanished. This dual identity is what makes Chandapur so extraordinary. Tourists, especially those unfamiliar with this phenomenon, are often stunned to return to the spot where they were just walking earlier and see it fully underwater again. Access to the beach is free and the area is relatively undeveloped compared to major tourist hubs. Some small shops and lodges exist, but the region remains quiet. Importantly, though, Chandapur is also home to the integrated test range of the Indian military, and that's where missile tests are occasionally conducted. On such days, public access to parts of the beach is restricted, though the tides continue on as always. From a safety standpoint, there's a few hazards there, but if visitors are mindful of the tide's schedule, those who wander too far during low tide risk being stranded if the sea returns faster than expected. While that return is not tsunami-like or violent at all, the incoming tide can quickly surround unwary visitors and cut off access to the shore, especially in those low-lying areas. Chandapur Beach stands as a geological oddity and an ecological treasure, where the ocean's retreat reveals a hidden world below the surface, and its return covers it once again in secrecy. Among beaches known for its unusual colors or compositions, Chandapur makes its mark by defying visibility altogether, becoming, quite literally, the beach that disappears.